I stood in the church, staring at my father's coffin as the murmurs of distant relatives filled the room. The air smelled of flowers that felt too heavy, too sweet, almost suffocating. People were crying softly, but my own tears wouldn't come. My father and I had been complicated, and grief didn't arrive easily. I stepped closer to the coffin, placing my hand on the polished wood. That's when I saw it. A small piece of tape, barely visible beneath the edge. My breath caught. Something metallic glinted under the dim lights. I leaned in, pretending to adjust the flowers, and slipped my fingers underneath. It was a brass key. Small, cold, and ordinary at first glance, yet out of place in a moment like this. My pulse quickened. Why would there be a key hidden on his coffin? Who had put it there? And why me? I looked around. My brother stood a few feet away, watching me with a stiff expression, like he was waiting for me to break. I clenched the key in my palm, slipped it into my pocket, and forced myself to step back. No one seemed to notice. The service continued, the priest's words echoing in a blur, but my focus was gone. My mind circled the same questions. What did this key unlock? Did my father leave it for me? And if he did, what was he trying to tell me now, when it was already too late? When the coffin was lowered, I felt a strange unease, as though I had taken something forbidden. But deep inside, I also felt something else, the faintest spark of curiosity, one that wouldn't let me rest. That night, alone in my room, I pulled out the key again. I turned it over in my hand, studying the scratches along its edge. It wasn't a house key. It looked older, more specific, like it belonged to a drawer or a box. And then it struck me. My father's study. His heavy wooden desk had always been locked, and he never let anyone inside. Could this be it? I closed my fist around the key. Whatever answers it held, I knew I couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. The next evening, after everyone had gone home and the house fell quiet, I made my way to my father's study. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Dust hung in the air, the curtains drawn, the faint smell of old books and tobacco lingering. For years, this room had been off limits. My father kept it locked, and even when I was a child, I knew better than to cross that line. I closed the door behind me and stood still for a moment, listening. The house was silent. My brother was out, probably handling whatever arrangements he claimed were so important. That gave me just enough time. The desk loomed against the wall, heavy and dark, its drawers shut tight. My hand trembled slightly as I pulled the brass key from my pocket. I hesitated, staring at the small piece of metal. Part of me still wondered if I was doing something wrong, if maybe my father never meant for me to find this. But I slid the key into the lock anyway. It fit perfectly. With a small turn, the drawer clicked open. Inside was a stack of envelopes, some yellowed with age. There were also old photographs, my father as a young man standing beside people I didn't recognize. My breath caught when I saw one envelope with my name written across it. Just one word, to my daughter. My chest tightened. For years, he had kept me at a distance, his love always measured, his words guarded. Why now, after his death, was he finally reaching out? I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter. The first line made my stomach twist. If you're reading this, it means you found the key. I left it for you because there are truths your brother will never tell you. I froze, staring at the words. What did he mean? My brother? My father's handwriting continued, each line heavier than the last. He spoke of accounts, of documents hidden away, of a will that had been rewritten under pressure. Before I could finish, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I shoved the letter back into the drawer, slammed it shut, and pocketed the key. The door creaked open. My brother stepped in, his eyes scanning the room, then narrowing at me. "What are you doing in here?" His voice was calm, but too calm. "I was just looking around," I said, trying to sound casual. His gaze lingered on me for a long moment, and then he smiled faintly, though his eyes were sharp. Dad never liked anyone touching his things. He closed the door behind him, leaving me with a silence heavier than before. That night, I lay awake, the letter's words burning in my mind. My father had trusted me with this secret. But if my brother suspected what I had found, then the real danger was only beginning. The following days felt like a blur. Every time I looked at my brother, I replayed my father's words. "There are truths your brother will never tell you." The weight of that letter pressed against me like a stone I couldn't put down. I waited until the house emptied again before returning to the study. My hands shook as I pulled the drawer open once more. This time, I read the letter to the end. My father wrote about bank accounts, investments, and a will that once included me equally. But he confessed he had been pressured, pushed by my brother's constant persuasion, his claims that I was unreliable and ungrateful. My brother had convinced him that leaving everything to him was best for the family. The last lines of the letter stopped me cold. I wanted to change it back, but he found ways to stop me. "This key is my last attempt to set things right." I pressed the paper to my chest, anger and grief twisting together. My own brother had stolen not just money, but my father's trust in me. When I finally confronted him, it wasn't planned. We sat in the dining room, the evening light spilling across the table. He had a glass of whiskey in hand, his expression relaxed, until I slid the letter in front of him. "What's this supposed to mean?" I asked, my voice steady though my hands trembled. He glanced down, then back at me, his lips curving into a cold smile. "You shouldn't have found that." "So it's true," I whispered. "You manipulated him. You made him think I wasn't worthy." He leaned back in his chair, unbothered. "Do you really think he would have left you anything? You were never close to him. I was the one who stayed. I handled everything. I deserve it." The fury inside me boiled over. "You don't deserve to erase me from my own father's life." For a moment, the mask slipped from his face. His eyes hardened, his voice dropped low. "No one will believe you. Everyone knows I was the one by his side." But in that moment, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet daughter who stayed in the shadows. My father had left me the key, not him. That meant something. I picked up the letter, folded it carefully, and met his stare. "We'll see who they believe." His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The silence between us was sharp, dangerous. I walked out of the room, clutching the letter like a weapon. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let him bury me along with my father's secrets. The morning I walked into the lawyer's office, I felt the weight of every sleepless night pressing down on me. My brother's words still rang in my head: "No one will believe you." But the letter in my bag, along with the documents from my father's desk, gave me the courage to keep going. The lawyer, a stern woman with sharp eyes, studied the papers carefully. She compared signatures, checked dates, and flipped through the stack of hidden documents. After what felt like an eternity, she looked up at me. "This changes everything," she said. "Your father's second will is valid. And your brother knew it." I let out a shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something other than grief, relief. Later that evening, the family gathered at the house. My brother sat at the head of the table, confident as ever, until the lawyer laid the documents in front of everyone. The silence was deafening as the truth unfolded. My brother's face drained of color. "You lied," I said quietly, my voice steady. "You tried to erase me. But Dad didn't want that." He opened his mouth, but no excuses came. The relatives who once looked at me with doubt now turned their eyes on him, their whispers filling the room. For once, he wasn't in control. I thought I'd feel victorious, but instead I felt free. Free from the years of being overshadowed, free from the silence I had carried. I didn't need to fight him anymore. The truth was already out, and that was enough. That night, alone in my room, I opened the last envelope I had found in the drawer. Inside was a single note in my father's handwriting. "The key was always yours, not just to this drawer, but to your life. Don't let anyone take that from you." Tears finally came, not of sorrow but of release. For so long, I had believed I was powerless, trapped in a family that never saw me fully. But the key had proved otherwise. I folded the note, placed it carefully back in the envelope, and whispered to the empty room, "I won't, Dad. I promise." From that moment on, I knew I would no longer live in my brother's shadow. The betrayal had hurt me deeply, but it also set me free. I had found my strength, and no one could lock it away again.